everyone. I hope everything is working properly. Welcome everyone. A warm welcome to those of you joining in person. A warm welcome as well to those of you joining us virtually today. Welcome to this very special side event, to this very special discussion where you will be able to raise your voice and join the conversation. Dear friends, we have had enough of empty promises. We have had enough of misunderstandings. We have had enough of escaping from responsibility and fighting against each other. It is now time for practical solutions. It's time for inclusive discussion. It's time for fighting together for a common cause and against a common challenge of the climate crisis. It is time for an open dialogue. Hello everyone, my name is Zuzana Borowska, and I am the founder of the Open Dialogues on Climate Change International project. And I am happy to welcome you to this event. I am here today because I care about my future and the future of our world, and most importantly, because I believe in dialogue as the most effective tool to create solutions and make a difference. And I would like to now open this event to all of you with hope that it will bring in some inspiration for you, some new insights, some new thoughts, and some positive energy for taking further climate action. And now I would like to move on to introducing all the other amazing speakers that have made this event possible. So could you all please introduce yourselves right now, starting with Moses right next to me.
Hi everyone, my name is Moses Boigby. I'm from Nigeria. I'm the Assistant Executive Director for Society for Development and Community Empowerment, an NGO based in Nigeria and in partnership with ODCC. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Henrietta. I'm from the UK. And I was the UK organiser for the Open Dialogues on Climate Change, and I'm so excited to spread the message on why it's so important to get young people involved in climate conversations, and not just hearing us, but listening to us.
Hello, I'm Dirk van Sint-Jan. I'm the president of REScoop.eu, which is the European Federation of Citizen Energy Cooperatives that do all kinds of things, invest in renewable energy across Europe.
Hello everyone, this is Zahra Abu Taha. I'm Jordanian climate activist. I'm here today on behalf of Ms. Samia, which is the chairman of Nisa Bladi. Unfortunately, because of COVID situation in Morocco, she couldn't come today, so I'm representing her today. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone. Good morning everyone. My name is Shantanu. I come from India. I work with the Major Group for Children and Youth in the Steering Committee of United Nations Environment Programme, and I'm also a youth representative for a social spiritual organization called Brahma Kumaris. And welcome you all.
Thank you so much. Now maybe you are wondering what actually are the open dialogues on climate change, which are the main topic of the side event today. So as you can see on the slide, Open Dialogues on Climate Change means an inclusive dialogue project to bridge the gap between stakeholders and decision makers. But what does that mean? Well, so it is a project that was developed a few months ago. So it actually has just started this year, but it's already making a great change in our world in different countries. We are aiming to organize an open discussion, a platform for different groups, for different stakeholders, different social groups to come together and exchange ideas, solutions, questions, most importantly, to develop some specific recommendations of how we can act to solve the climate crisis. So our focus is not only on talking, but most importantly, on action. And we have already been doing this in many countries around the world. So the people in our project are active in over 50 countries around the world. we have accepted 28 organizing teams from different countries, mostly from the Global South. And they are organizing events where different stakeholders are meeting together. So for example, decision makers, politicians, NGOs, business, media, scientists, youth. Everyone is welcome to our dialogue. Every voice is equal. Everyone can just come and share and exchange ideas. But this is not where we stop. We go a step further. We not only discuss, but we also create specific solutions and proposals. And this has already happened in a few countries. We have already had events in 9 countries, which we will present in a moment to you. Some of these events were in person, some of these events were virtual, some were hybrid. All of them were different because, of course, we wanted to give the organizers the space to organize the events in a way that it fits their country, their background, the challenges that they are fighting in their country, and so they can develop suitable solutions. But we also wanted to bring it to the international level, to learn from each other, to share experiences, to coordinate it, and to make a greater impact. So before we go to the presentation of some specific outcomes of our national events, can we please play a short video that was created by our participants from different countries, saying why we need an open dialogue on climate change? I think the sound is not working. Or is it? If I might ask anyone if the sound was only not working for us or in general?
Generally not working.
Maybe we should just discuss how important an open dialogue is anyway, like people from all around the world, which will be shown through Moses with our open dialogue simulation.
Okay. Okay. Dear colleagues and friends, it's a pleasure to have you here today, because at this critical time, climate education and participation is key to everyone and everywhere. The importance of this dialogue cannot be overemphasized. So it is important for us to get your opinion on certain climate topics, particularly climate education and participation. So we want you to raise your voice. We want to hear your opinion. It's important because this is key. This is why ODCC is here. So I'm going to start with my colleague, Chantel. Chantel, in your opinion, how can we increase climate change awareness? How do you think we can increase climate change awareness?
Thank you so much, Moses, for the question. For me, I think awareness is at different levels. The first being an individual awareness that I can have that leads me to my individual choices. And those individual choices leads me to certain decisions. And those decisions lead me to make certain actions. So it starts with individual awareness. And when I am aware, I start a ripple effect and I have a collective awareness that leads to collective actions. So for me, awareness starts with the individual level, community level, and at a level of global action. But I think for that, what is needed is education, and education to become a very primary agenda in every every sector. It shouldn't be a side event topic, but a plenary topic, because education can bring benefit not just to the children, but those who are teaching them also needs to get prepared. So that's also, working in different dimensions. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Zara, do you have any opinion on that? How can we increase climate change awareness?
Actually, I'm going to start with the slogan that it's shown, open dialogue in practice. I believe that climate awareness should be connected with practices in a way or another, because we always talk about climate change. Sometimes we raise our voices, we want to make policies, we want to develop policies, but then after that, what's going on the ground? So awareness, in a way or another, we should connect it with practices. For example, if I want to raise awareness about pollution or about greenhouse gas emissions, as my colleague said, we should teach people and raise their awareness. How does that connect to their individual practices and then in a larger level? Thank you.
Thank you. So, Dan, do you have any opinion on that? Increasing climate awareness?
Well, of course, I'm not a young guy anymore.
Okay, that's fine.
But when I was your age, I was an anti-nuclear activist. And at a certain moment, I experienced a sort of insight that I was not convincing anyone with shouting alone in the street, like we will do after this event. I will join the young people anyway, in the rain. But my experience is that you can convince people with something that works, a real alternative, that gives them an alternative for what they know. And people are afraid of change, so you have to convince them by showing the alternative works. And this has been the topic of my, let's say, my whole career. And in the energy cooperatives, and that's what we show, and later on I will show some examples of what our members across Europe do.
Okay. Thank you, perfect. Henrietta?
I feel like, as Shantanu pointed out, climate awareness is so important from a young age. As someone that's still in education, I know that climate education, it's quite diminutive in at least UK schools, and there's really not a lot of it. And I think it's one of the best ways, because through knowledge and through just increasing awareness of what's happening around our world, there is empowerment to be able to create change, to be able to make a better world for all of us. And I feel like education is truly one of the best ways. And education isn't just through schools. I think that's important to note, that education can be just through having these open dialogues, or through having small conversations with your friends, with your family, and discussing what's happening in our world, what we can do about it, all about the climate crisis. And I think that's one of the best ways. And I think with an open dialogue, it's important, if anyone in the audience has anything they want to contribute to an open dialogue and increasing awareness, please feel free to come up to the mic as well.
Thank you, perfect. So before I ask Susanna about our opinion, please, if you have your opinion, you can use any of the mic, and please raise your voice. Susanna?
Yeah, thank you so much. Regarding climate awareness, I think that awareness is actually two things. First of all, it's knowing what is happening, but this is not enough. Awareness is also acting upon this knowledge and knowing what to do and how to do it. So this is why I absolutely agree with what has already been said, that the absolutely key thing to raising awareness is education, because we not only need to know that something is happening and that there is a crisis, but we also need to know how to act upon it, and we need to empower people, especially young people, who have so much energy and they have so many ideas, and they really want to act, but so often they don't know how to do it. So this is why we need to empower them so much, and we need to open the space to everyone, also those disadvantaged groups. who normally don't get a seat at the table. So this is what we are exactly doing right now, and this is what we also aim to do through the open dialogue. So it's about young people, but it's also about all the other groups. It's literally about everyone. And it's through a conversation like this, through an open dialogue, through an open discussion and sharing of views, how we can really create climate awareness. Yeah, thank you so much. And I would really like everyone else here to also participate in this discussion, because this is what the aim of an open dialogue is. So if you have an opinion and if you would like to share it, then it's the time for you, and it's the main point that we also want to have today, to give you a chance
to hear your view. Okay, let's move on. So, Henrietta, you talked about climate education. So why do you think climate education is important? Why do you think it's important? Not just for the UK, but all over the world.
Definitely. I think education in general, not just climate education. I know that some of you may know that educating girls is one of the best ways to mitigate and adapt to climate change, by empowering young women. So I believe that's very important. And in terms of climate education, I feel like just from a young age and increasing awareness, for example, I remember learning about why I should recycle and turn the lights off when I was just like 5 years old. And I feel like as we get older, that this needs to be increased, and this awareness needs to be raised, and it shouldn't just be subject specific. For example, we shouldn't just learn about it in geography or science, the scientific processes behind climate change, but we should be saying these are the impacts that will happen and are already happening around the world. And I feel like integrating that within many different subjects, maybe someone has more ideas about how this could be within different subjects, but I think it's so paramount to adapt and mitigate climate change.
Thank you. So then, why is climate education important?
Well, there's a lot of misinformation around on the internet, and people often think they know everything about something because they read something somewhere on Facebook, or was it Twitter or Instagram, they don't know anymore. So our members, they are cooperatives, and we work according 7 cooperative principles. And one of the core principles of cooperatives is education, not only of the members, but of people in society as a whole. So we see education of and inform people about what's really going on with our with climate, with the energy transition, as key of our activities. And so it's always at the core of what we do.
Yeah, I think I quite agree with you. A lot of persons go to internet, they read, they think they know everything.
Yeah. Everyone's a specialist now, an expert.
Yeah. Zara?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, for the climate education, I believe it's important because currently we are facing a revolution of social media. Public opinions are not created only by scientists or by academic institutions. If I were someone of this generation who want to educate themselves about climate change, I'm going to find on social media so many opinions, even climate skeptics. So I can't or I can't understand what should I do in this crisis unless I have educational system, educate me what is the problem and what can I do and where we are right now. So I believe it's important because we want to listen from the right side, because to understand what we are going to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Any opinion from the audience? Okay. Okay, can I use the mic? Please state your name and shoot.
Hello. So, is it working?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my name's Victoria, and just on the issue of education and sort of social media and reliance, don't worry, I'm not one of those people who goes on that. But I went to a talk yesterday about indigenous populations and how they feed into this climate change and climate justice kind of conversation, and most of the time they're left out of published media, left out of science, and their knowledge is not really integrated into the kind of peer-reviewed system. So they rely on outside structures such as social media to pass on their own traditional methods of how they were going to tackle the climate change and climate justice whole landscape. So I guess the question is, knowing that there's some people that are left out who have correct knowledge, and then there is obviously the misinformation and disinformation agenda, how do people come together to decipher which one is alternative in the good way and the positive way, and alternative in the not so positive way? So I just wanted to highlight that there is a nuance with information that you do find online, and to be careful to not exclude people who are not included in the mainstream of academia.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I would like to take on that because what she mentioned is there is the knowledge which is ignored, and the knowledge, not just a fresh knowledge, but a very ancient and very dignified knowledge. I see education right now is quite structured within a box, and for education people just think it's maths, it's science, it's this and that. But education is beyond that. It is not to just give you a job or to make you competent enough to get a better job than your next person. But education should be something that helps you to become more empowered, something that empowers you to take care of yourself when you are at a time of crisis, and that's not there. So education needs to help every individual to have the power to discern what is right for me, what is that I can choose from. And that power of discernment is very much important when it comes to, see between what is right media, what is wrong media, where do I want to focus my energy into, and how do I want myself to be fed by? What is that I consider as my nourishment, my internal nourishment? So there's a place where, as Victoria was mentioning, there is a lot of indigenous knowledge there, but how to bring it is through probably this open dialogue, where you can bring their voice, where we can accept and we can work together.
Yeah, and if may I add a point for what you said on individual levels. Other than my climate activism, I work in a humanitarian NGO with the Syrian refugee camps. And I asked my boss, I want to start educating children in the camp about climate change, because my project is recycling is not that much connected with climate change. And he said, he asked me, we want to find a way that we talk with people who are living in caravans and with very hard conditions. How can I convince them with floodings and so on, and something is not related to them? And the entrance for their mentalities was they experienced to be refugees and to live in hard conditions. So when you start telling them that there's going to be climate refugees and there's going to be other crises other than that they lived already, they are more convinced other than people. So when you are talking with individuals based on their circumstances, they believe more about the crisis, because each one of us will experience this crisis in a different way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think just quickly on that, I attended the youth strike yesterday, and there were some incredible Indigenous people that were on the stage. They were talking in their own language, and they were performing through music, through art. And I think that shows that climate education isn't just through sitting in a classroom. It's through being, as Shantanu said, it's being empowered and being mesmerized and inspired by what the Indigenous people are saying. They protect so much of the world's biodiversity, so it's time to start treating Indigenous rights like human rights. And that can be through multiple formats, and not just, of course, teaching people about them, but just listening to their voices and putting them at the forefront of, the fight.
Thank you. So, Susanna, do you have any opinion?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I will not talk a lot, as I would also like to give the others the space. But I, of course, agree that education is absolutely key, because education is actually where it all starts. Because you first need to know what is happening. You need to have the basis, the knowledge that will, as the others have already said, empower you and inspire you to actually develop something on this basis. So you don't have to start right from the beginning. You already have some other people who have already learned something, and they can share that with you. And if this is shared in a proper way, that really empowers you to take your own action and develop your own ideas. This is, I think, how really great, amazing new solutions are created. So I think that education is absolutely key, especially for creating some long-term, lasting solutions and changes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, this is the final piece of question to everyone now. Climate change is upon us, whether we agree or not, is upon us. So in our various communities, how do you think our community can help in climate change? I'm going to start with Zara.
Sorry?
How can your community help in climate change?
Actually, each community has their own context to talk about climate change. For example, I come from Jordan. We have financial crisis in Middle East, not only in Jordan. So sometimes people believe that people who are talking about climate change, only elite group, they don't have any other crisis in their lives, because we don't have that much seas, and we don't have that much impacts that we witness. But when you talk with these simple people about their food security and about their livelihood, how it's going to be, like how entirely they will be vulnerable from climate change impacts. And yeah, so I believe that each community has their own context to talk with them about climate change. For example, indigenous people who have like their lands and they witness the climate change impacts on their communities. Other communities, maybe they are far away with like these impacts, but you have to talk with them in another way. So yeah, each community has their own context.
Thank you. Dan, you have an opinion on that?
Well, I'm coming from Belgium, and if the sea goes up, half of the country will be underwater, including one of the biggest chemical ports of the world, even, and nuclear power plants. So the prospect is not very interesting. What can we do as a community? Well, of course, we have a historical responsibility as one of the industrialized countries, with also a history in Africa, where we took out minerals and all kinds of things, uranium, and so. So we have to take up our responsibility, and what will be very difficult for most people is that we will have to change our way of living. We will have to do with less energy. We will have to switch from fossil and nuclear to renewable, from a centralized system to a decentralized system, and from wasting energy to trying not to use energy. So this is disruptive, and most people don't like this. So we have an enormous responsibility as citizens, as cooperatives that are doing something on energy, is to show people what will work in Europe and that they will have a certain standard of living. And if they insulate their homes, the problem will not be that high, or that the problems will be bearable. So, but it's a difficult story. People don't like change. People are afraid of change. They know what they have, and they don't know what they will get.
Thank you. So is there any opinion from the audience, community rules with climate change? Any opinion? Okay. Shanta?
So I like what Zara and Dan added, that we have to look into the way we live. And right now what we can understand is we live on a void. There is an inner void that pushes us to, buy and consume and consume and consume and get ourselves filled up with things. Whereas it should be the other way around. When there is this inner contentment, then I'm not running and I'm not motivated by greed. And when that's that awareness, when is achieved, what we can get is a very sustainable way of leading life. And it's not just at the level of individual, but at a community level also. Every community is strong enough to become self-sovereign. But what is happening is communities look at each other, they compete, and they want to become like them. So understand your geography, understand your locality, understand your powers, understand your capacity, and try to bring all together, create a plan that is sustainable for the community. So I think it is having contentment that can lead you to a very peaceful and flourishing future.
Thank you. Susanna?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I absolutely agree that empowering communities is crucial. As it has already been said, every community is different, which is absolutely beautiful because we are different, we are diverse, but at the same time in this diversity we can be and we should be united, and this is what we should do, and this is what will really bring us some collective power. And this is also why we are doing the open dialogues on climate change, because we are both recognizing the local and the national level and the local challenges, but we are also bringing it into a common platform where people can learn from each other and where they can share and exchange experiences. So I believe this is really important, and I'm really happy that this is happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Marita?
Yeah, I guess I agree with everyone in that communities are so important, and grassroots organisations often, I often say that the decision makers often aren't the people that fill me with hope, and it's other young people, it's my community, it's the community of people passionate about making our world a better place, a more sustainable place, a more just place. And it's communities where the power lies, and that we can hold people accountable, we can hold decision makers accountable if pressure is put on. And like everyone said, communities are so diverse, and often we see in spaces like COP26, often the negotiators and the actual people making these decisions aren't that diverse, unfortunately. So I think that just demonstrates how important it is to have a community and ensure the most marginalised people, like women, like people of colour, for example, people from the Global South, is so important that we listen to.
Thank you, guys. I think it's important for us to continue to raise our voice so that we can communicate the most important message on climate. Thank you, guys. So, Susanna.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this discussion. I hope it was inspiring for some of you. We will definitely record the ideas that came in, and we will use them to inspire our further actions. Excuse me, why are the slides not working? All right, thank you so much. So now we will move to another part of our side event of our presentation, where we will share some of the stories of implementation of the open dialogues idea, some stories of inspiration, what has already happened and what is happening right now to create an open space for people to bring in solutions and ideas and create specific recommendations of action. Sorry, could we move to the previous slide? Yeah, the next one.
I feel like there was one about Poland, so maybe we'll try and
Yes, there should be.
But if not, I can start talking about the UK.
But then we can start with the UK. So we are going to right now present some specific outcomes that were created during our national events of the Open Dialogues on Climate Change project.
So, hi, I was the national organiser for the UK's Open Dialogues on Climate Change, and we were a team from all around the UK, and we hosted 2 virtual events called Seas and Sky and Cities and Trees. We had over 60 total participants, all young people, which I was so happy about because it meant that there was this truly open dialogue between all stakeholders in the climate emergency. And we had lots of dynamic discussions and questions, helping bridge the gap between these decision makers, between young people, because often that discourse isn't there, and it's so important that we can empower young people through knowledge, through education. As we discussed, education isn't just sitting in a classroom. Because with an open conversation and with a diverse discourse is knowledge and empowerment. And what we learned from our open dialogue, we had speakers from, for example, Pay to Pollute, and they are taking the UK government to court because they've spent £4 billion of public money since the Paris Agreement on fossil fuels, giving money to fossil fuel companies. And I thought that was really interesting in how they're saying it's so important that we move obviously away from fossil fuels, like the IPCC report said, and we move towards community sustainable energy. And it was so interesting, especially for the young people like me, to be able to hear about how we can do this and why it's so important. And we had so many different speakers speaking about how some communities are more affected by air pollution, for example, because I feel like often we can push climate change aside as if it's going to happen to another country. So I think it's so important that we discuss the international issues and the local ones too. So if we could move on to the next slide.
Yeah, so here we have a video from our colleagues from Italy that organized an event in their country. Hopefully it will work this time. Right. And here we also have a few points from our colleagues from Mexico, who are also not here today, but they organized 3 amazing virtual events with 3 topics. First of them was about coastal zones, the second one was about water, and the third one was about environmental economies. And you can see here on the slide some key insights, some key topics that were addressed, some key recommendations. So one of the main points was environmental education, which we have already discussed here today. It was identified as a key thing that has to be focused on. There were some ideas how it could be done. So, of course, through formal education, but of course, non-formal education as well. For example, media campaigns. There was also an idea to create some institutions that would protect activists and provide a better public access to information, sharing information. And also, there were mentioned some water use regulations that should be introduced, and the idea of economy of solidarity and fairness was promoted.
So Cameroon had their open dialogue, and this was an online virtual open dialogue, and they have representatives from local and international organisations discussing issues from plastic waste to education, as we hear again, on sustainable development. And their speakers discussed and they demonstrated how these local small actions can grow to a global level change, as we discussed how the importance of community efforts to instill this change in our world. And they showed through local projects in Cameroon how this was achieved, and they had this open dialogue for the participants, young people, to discuss with the people who have implemented such amazing projects in Cameroon and how they can create that change for sustainable development.
Here we have another video, if we can go with this one.
Hello, hi everyone, my name is Bennett Kenyansa. I was part of the participants of the Ghana Open Dialogue on climate change on the 18th of October, organized by or hosted by ABB Man Foundation. I must say it was a nice encounter. We brought together CSOs and other youth groups came alike, and we deliberated on climate change issues. And for me, the standout issue or my take has to do with the need to have a manual that would guide us, a manual that would educate us, a manual also that would inform participants, especially on climate change. And it would be of great help if we have a manual that all of us could know issues and we could deliberate on things that we ought to do as agents or advocates of climate change. Thank you.
And we had Chad, and they actually did their like conference debate style in person, which I thought was quite interesting, and great that there were so many different avenues for people to be able to participate. And there were opportunities for the audience to ask questions to the panelists, including government members, NGOs, and Indigenous people, to create suggestions of solutions for climate change, for how they can help their communities adapt in Chad. And what I thought was really interesting is their next phase, they're going to conduct activities in remote areas with those, as they beautifully put it, with those living directly in relationship with Mother Earth. And so they're going to be working with Indigenous people to hear from them and just be able to bring this back to the other communities in Chad and discuss the importance of listening to everyone, the importance of an open dialogue, as we discussed. And one of their main suggestions for what we can do, one of their main outcomes, was to involve youth and immediately start the transition to renewables and making it accessible to everyone and connecting people to electricity and clean energy. And I thought that was great because so many people, I feel like, especially like where I live, access to energy is kind of a given. And when I was researching what Chad did in their open dialogue, I found it's so insightful how they want to make sure energy is accessible to everyone, but it's also sustainable. And I feel like that it shows the importance of involving all countries around the world. Like the most developed countries like the UK have a huge responsibility to play, and just seeing how different communities are doing it are so important.
Yeah, so we also have a short video from our colleagues from South Africa who organized their event.
Hi everyone, I'm Siobhan Bladi from the South African ODCC team. During the dialogues, we found out what the South African youth was most concerned about. High on that list was the importance of an accelerated just energy transition, where our country moves away from a carbon-intensive economy to one that is anchored in renewable energy, has a green economy and a surplus of jobs. Now we're going to hear from the South African Core 16 delegate.
Hi there, my name is Dominic Naidu. It really was a privilege being a part of the ODCC event this year and being a part of such engaging climate discussions from youth around the country. I do hope we see more participation from all sectors, private and government, in the near future in combating the climate change catastrophe.
All right, and we finally have Indonesia. We were supposed to have our speaker from Indonesia here with us. Unfortunately, she was unable to come, but I will read on her behalf a few words about the work that she's doing in Indonesia. Mandala is an open dialogue co-designed with the local and indigenous youth who need to gain more insight and exchange experiences while advancing our common values to our respective communities. And it is built as our power to help influence current issues, potentials, and gaps in an environmental-related action. The main objectives are to get along experience as youth and a woman in a highly diverse environment in Indonesia, and to hold a safe space where we can dialogue with respect, compassion, and love, so according to the principles of the open dialogue. All right, and now we will move on to our next section. So on the basis of all those insights, all those outcomes and recommendations created on the national levels by our national teams, we have come up with our global call to action with a few very short but very important points that we have put together as our common message that we want everyone to hear and that we want everyone to take as a common call to action. And we will now present these calls to action. First of all, open dialogue. Climate crisis affects every person, every group, and every community. So we ask for conducting open dialogues on climate change between different stakeholders in every country to hear their voices and ideas. We call upon the governments to implement the outcomes of such dialogues on the national level.
The next one was inclusive public participation. This was one of the main outcomes from all of the global open dialogues. And it says that all parts of our community should be included in all levels of decision making related to climate change, as hopefully we will see in future COPs. Inclusion of the most vulnerable, underrepresented and disadvantaged groups is of vital importance.
The third recommendation was on climate education for all. Collective action must be taken to raise awareness and educate on the challenges and chances of climate crisis. We ask for specific national and international regulations on climate education for the whole society.
The next goal is transparent communication. Reliable information about climate change and its impact must be easily accessible to everyone. Media must communicate such information in a transparent manner.
Another extremely important thing, human rights and equity. We need collective action to end the rising inequalities that result from climate change. Protection of human rights of those most affected must be prioritized.
So a fast and just transition, as I discussed before, from the outcomes of the UK open dialogues. It was a big thing about moving away from fossil fuels, and out of all of the global outcomes, we said that we are demanding active efforts by all countries and all stakeholders to end the use of fossil fuels and speed up the process of transition to renewable energy sources. Climate justice has to be emphasised in all stages of the transition process, meaning all workers are ensured that they get a proper transition and they're not just left in the dark. And I think that's so important to achieve climate justice and social justice.
Okay. The final global goal is science first. Whenever making decisions regarding our environment and climate, we must first consult the best available science and base any action on it. Research related to climate change needs more funding, more support, and more attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we will move to another story by our another speaker, Mr. Dirk van Sintien from REScoop.eu, who will tell you about the green transition and community participation hidden benefits.
Okay, I will stand up because I don't have a view on the presentation here. I will stand here. So we were asked to merge the two side events, so it's a bit, I try to adapt to what these young people bring. Actually, I'm able to come because we are part of an Interreg Northwest Europe funded project which is called ECHO, which tried to set up renewable energy cooperatives in rural areas, and we succeeded very well in this. Dozens of them were created during the project, which is still running half a year. Yes, next slide. So what we discovered is that there are a lot of hidden benefits. But first of all, who is our federation? So it was only established about 8 years ago, but we now represent about half of the existing energy cooperatives around in Europe. And we have some employees, and we consider these energy cooperatives, citizen energy cooperatives, as groups of citizens who cooperate in energy transition projects. A cooperative is always an answer to a problem in whatever sector it is. So, for instance, my cooperative was created 30 years ago, in 1991, as a reaction on the nuclear disaster in Chernobyl. And then people think there's a problem, and they react, and they start working on an alternative. Yes, next slide. So what do? We provide the representation of these initiatives, more than 3,500 at the European level. We support starting and established energy cooperatives, and we facilitate international exchanges, and we promote the cooperative business model. Next slide. So what are these benefits of these initiatives? Actually, according to us, it's a crucial part of the solution. So the energy transition is a crucial part of the solution to stop the climate crisis. They foster social acceptance for renewables. When wind turbines are owned by the local people, they tend to love them, instead hate them. Next slide, please. So it also offers people who don't have enough money to put solar panels on their roof. It offers them, by joining a cooperative, it offers them the access to green energy anyway. To give a concrete example, I won't give the example of the Netherlands, but to give a concrete example, my cooperative, you have to buy a share of €250. And for this, you have green electricity from your own wind turbines, solar panels, hydropower plants at home, whereas solar panels cost at least 10 times more than that. And if you're not able to put €250 at once on the table, there's a savings mechanism so that you can become a member for €5 every month, for instance. What is also interesting is that these energy communities, these energy cooperatives, when they start having production and income, they start doing other things with the money. For instance, Lochem Energie in the Netherlands, they set up a car sharing, electrical car sharing service. And for people who are, for elderly people or people who have to go to the hospital, don't have an own car, volunteers bring them with these electrical cars to the hospital or to a supermarket or whatever. Next slide, please. So what is crucial in this energy transition is that wind turbines are owned by the people who live nearby them. Why is this important? Because then the money that is now flowing out of our local area, out of our pockets, for buying coal, oil, gas, uranium, when we turn to the renewables and if we own the production facilities as citizens, then this money that is now flowing out of our economy stays in our local economy and accumulates. Scientific studies show that depending on the country and the support mechanisms there are, it generates 2 to 8 times more local revenue than if it was if the wind turbines were owned by a foreign investor or a big company. These projects, if they're owned by local people, they create jobs. They create opportunities for young people to stay in a rural area, whereas now they tend to go to the cities. And it also gives energy at a stable price. For instance, my cooperative now, with the very high energy prices in Europe now, we were not affected because we produce more than we supply our members with. So we can decide on the price more or less ourselves, whereas the price on the market is defined by the most expensive way of producing the electricity, which is now gas at a high price. Yes, next slide. And then we come actually to the topic of open dialogues. So community energy, it creates spaces to educate people on the issues of energy, climate, and democracy. We raise awareness about the energy transition in the community, and we empower citizens to take actions as, for instance, in energy savings. To give, again, the example of my own cooperative, our members, they consume half of what the average Flemish household consumes. And we see this in all the other energy cooperatives across Europe. Once you become a member of a cooperative, you get informed and you take action, personal action, and you take action together with your neighbors. Next slide. We also see that it offers an opportunity to tackle energy poverty in your area. Belgium is a rich country, but 1 out of 5 households have problems paying their energy bills, even in a rich country. So imagine what it is in the former communist countries, Eastern and Central Europe. We don't take profit. A cooperative is a not-for-profit business. It sounds strange, but we sell our energy at the lowest possible price to our members. And we also provide, we work on programs to for instance, to insulate homes of people who have problems paying their bills. Next slide. An energy cooperative, an energy community is also a way to make new, to get to know your neighbors again. In a very individualized society we have in Western Europe, it is a way to strengthen the community as a whole. When you are able to put up a wind turbine together, you get a sense of pride and a confidence. And it sets in motion other projects which can also benefit the community. I have here a small video, but I don't know if we have the time to show it. Maybe, Susanna?
We might try.
If it works, when you click on Bio-Energiedorf Borosve, it works or it doesn't work?
No, I think there's no video.
No video, okay.
No.
Continue. Next slide, please. So, so the community renewables, they redirect money that are now supporting the fossil fuel system. People, when you own the installations, people have a say in how the profits will be used. And investing savings in community energy can redirect this money to climate solutions and the local economy. Of course, I'm talking about Europe, mainly Western Europe. People have a lot of savings. For instance, in Belgium, the households have about 280 billion euro of savings. The banks don't really need it because there's enough money. But if we can redirect this money to the investments needed, and that's almost the amount we need in Belgium alone to go to the 100% renewable economy and society. Well, if we invest this ourselves, if we are able to do this, then that's the way to go. Next slide. By doing this, we will give a new chance to the local economy. We can find a balance between rural and urban, between local and global. And that's what we need. So we need a new balance. We need actually a new economy. And we believe it's a cooperative economy. Next slide. So, of course, we have to overcome a lot of barriers. My whole career, let's say in the renewable energy sector, was one of overcoming barriers. There are still a lot of barriers. I won't list them up here. But it is very hopeful that the European Commission, they recognize the importance of what our movement, the community energy movement, is doing in Europe. And they provided us with definitions, and they also, all member states of the European Union now have to look at what are the barriers for energy communities, and then they have to make an enabling framework to overcome it. And well, I can say that the best example, it's not perfect, but the best example is still the enabling framework of Scotland. We're now in Scotland, so, and they combined in their renewable energy target, they have a sub-target for community energy, and they combined it with an enabling framework, financial, organizational, and support, which is called the CARES scheme. And so this has been very successful over the past decade. Yeah, next slide. So we need policy innovation. And a new area in many countries needs policy innovation. And we have to have design dedicated support schemes for energy communities. We often compare ourselves with cyclists. They need a bike lane. You don't have to put small communities for instance, now all governments turn to tendering the support for renewables. You don't have to force a group of citizens with once a project, solar panels on a school, with a big company which has that have a pipeline of maybe 100 projects. You don't have to let them compete. So we need a bike lane for our initiatives. The administrative procedures have to be simplified, and every member state, every country should have ambitious community energy targets, because it's essential that citizens are at the center of the energy transition. So, next slide. So how do we try to spread the news? Well, on our website, we're working on a one-stop shop. So inform people, especially young people, because they always have the tendency, and also me when I was young, you think that nothing exists, but there's a lot out there already. Meanwhile, we are gray-haired, but we welcome all young people to join the movement. On our website, you can find an incredible amount of information. We have this community energy guide, which guides people how to set up a community energy. It has now been translated in 9 languages. I'm finalizing the Dutch version myself. And you can find all kinds of information, tips, and support on our website. Yeah, I think this was my last slide. Next slide. Yeah. That's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and now I will also invite Zara to share some insights on green economy from a feminist perspective.
Thank you for giving me the panel, and thank you for the nice speeches that they had today on the panel. Today I'm going to be introducing a video which is mainly targeting MENA region. It has been produced by FES Political Feminism Program. And this program is basically supporting women and in MENA region who are feminist organizations and women defender for women rights and gender justice. For this video, it focuses on formulating strategic demands, especially focusing on a green economy transition from females' perspective. So I'm gonna show this video right now. It's in Arabic, but it's gonna be subtitled in English. So please feel free to ask for any part you feel that using it will.
يواجه العالم اليوم تحديات بيئية كبيرة نتيجة النمط الاقتصادي الرأسمالي القائم على الاستنزاف المبالغ فيه للموارد الطبيعية. وتواجه الدول في منطقتنا ارتفاعاً في نسب التلوث وزيادة في حدة ووتيرة ظواهر مناخية قصوى مثل الحرائق المتكررة للغابات والفيضانات والتصحر والجفاف طويل الأمد. في الوقت ذاته تبدو نتائج النمو الاقتصادي في مجال إحداث فرص العمل وتقليص الفوارق الاجتماعية محدودة. لمواجهة هذه التحديات التي تهدد سلامة الإنسان والأرض، علينا أن نتجه نحو اقتصاد مستدام يراعي الحماية البيئية ورفاهية الإنسان. عالمياً، ظهرت نماذج اقتصادية مختلفة في هذا الإطار، منها ما يسمى بالاقتصاد الأخضر. بدأت بعض الدول في المنطقة بوضع سياسات واستراتيجيات لتشجيع تطوير القطاعات الخضراء مثل الطاقات المتجددة والنقل المستدام وإدارة المياه والتدبير المستدام للنفايات والزراعة المدمجة والبناء المستدام والسياحة الإيكولوجية. لكن معظم هذه الاستراتيجيات لا تراعي الجانب الاجتماعي من التوجه إلى اقتصاد أخضر، خاصة فيما يتعلق بسوق العمل. تشير التقارير بأن 24 مليون فرصة عمل ستخلق بحلول سنة 2030 إذا وضعت السياسات اللازمة لتعزيز الاقتصاد الأخضر. لكن هناك تفاوتاً في الاستفادة من هذه الفرص من قبل الفئات المختلفة في المجتمعات بناء على الجندر والطبقة الاجتماعية ومكان السكن ومستوى التعليم وغيرها من العوامل التي تتقاطع لتشكل أنواعاً مختلفة من التمييز. لذلك تقع على الحكومات والنقابات العمالية ومنظمات المجتمع المدني والقطاعات الخاصة مسؤولية أخذ التدابير اللازمة للوصول إلى اقتصاد أخضر عادل اجتماعياً وجندرياً. من أهمها أولاً تأهيل العنصر البشري وتطوير التعليم بما يتناسب مع التكنولوجيا في المجالات البيئية وتحفيز الطالبات للتوجه نحو الاختصاصات الخضراء. ثانياً تعزيز الحقوق العمالية والتأكد من جودة الوظائف في القطاعات الخضراء، خاصة تلك غير المهيكلة والتي توظف عدداً كبيراً من النساء. ثالثاً إزالة العوائق التي تقف أمام ولوج النساء والفئات الهشة لسوق العمل وبقائهم فيه ووصولهم إلى الوظائف التي تتمتع بأجور مرتفعة. رابعاً الاعتراف بقيمة المعرفة المحلية الريفية بالممارسات الخضراء والاستثمار بها. خامساً تعديل القوانين التمييزية والتي تحرم النساء من الموارد المادية. سادساً تعزيز وصول النساء والفئات المهمشة لمراكز صنع القرار لدمج أولوياتهم في الاستراتيجيات والسياسات والقوانين ذات الصلة، لنعمل معاً نحو مستقبل عمل مستدام يتمحور حول العدالة البيئية والاجتماعية.
Thank you very much for this presentation, and now I will hand over to Shantanu for a short conclusion and reflection.
Thank you so much, Zara, for that beautiful video. I don't have any video to show you because you will be playing a video in your own minds. Are you all ready for that? So what I will inspire you or invite you to is to a little reflection. There cannot be any action if there is no intention. And if there is no intention, there cannot be any action. So this little last phase of this event is for you to look into your own self and reflect and see what is my intention for the future. Just like a little seed, it doesn't shows what it will grow into, but it has in itself all the possibilities. It just needs to go into the ground, into some kind of dark situations. But in that situation, it gets a lot of nourishment. And what you see after some time is a strong sapling that has broken the barriers of soil and everything, and it has come up. And then you see a big tree. So what I would request you is to, just for a few seconds, reflect into a future that you want. What is that future, and how do you want it to be like? And just take some time and see what you are doing in that future. How are you bringing that future? So now if you have got this little video played in your head, I would inspire you to use the QR code here or the link and share your 3 strongest words that have come in your mind. And alternatively, you are most welcome to use the mics and to share what the future looks like to you in one statement, one strong statement. I can start from Zara. What would be your future like in one sentence if you have to say?
I'm always trying to match that with the major that I studied, sustainable cities, because we are living in concrete cubes designed and dehumanized our practices. Once you talked about consuming, we are designed to be consumer because our cities and our pathways and everything. So sustainable cities is one thing that I envision.
We got sustainable cities, more organically designed.
Yes.
What about you, Dan? What is your most strongest statement?
Well, recently we discovered the donut economy theory of Kate Raworth, and we think we have to get away from, not only from capitalism, but also from state communism, which led us to the situation where we are. And we have to find a new way of economy and society. And we think it's...
a new way of thinking and a new way of economy. What about you, Henrietta?
I think for me, it's just empowering all communities and ensuring that the most marginalised, like young people and women, are listened to and are empowered. I know that I could get into a whole conversation all about how women's rights are so interlinked with climate change, and so I think just ensuring every stakeholder is given the same opportunities to be able to thrive in their society and live in a sustainable society through the empowerment of girls taking and listening to our voices and taking us seriously. That would be my main way of how we can have an inclusive dialogue, is simply by listening and taking into account all of our opinions.
So it's more like a culture of care where nobody is left behind. Thank you.
Definitely.
What about you, Moses? A short statement.
A sustainable future for me.
Sustainable future. A future has to be sustainable, only then it's future. And what about you, Susanna? Coming back to you.
Well, I'm just hopeful for the future. I think that we should work on empowering people, making sure that everyone believes in themselves and never forgets that every person matters and every voice is important. And with that, I think I would like to thank everyone for participating in this event, as we have only 30 seconds left, so we are perfectly on time. Thank you so much for participating, and let's stay hopeful, and please take this message with you to stay hopeful and to remember that together we can still do something and we can still change the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.